Welcome to the Bros of Gardening. I'm Mike Westphal, your host, along with my co-host, Daniel Van Dyke, of course. How's everything going?
Everything's going good, bud. We're rolling. How are you doing, buddy?
Doing good. Of course, we're joined by Alex, our producer. How you doing today?
I'm doing pretty good.
Good. Yeah, it's starting to warm up out there.
Yes.
Starting to get closer and closer to summer.
Absolutely.
Beach season.
Yep. So we've had a busy spring season. It's still going strong. Hope it continues to go. How's landscape going?
Yeah, landscape's going great. Like I said, it's always our busiest time of year. That's for a reason. You know, everybody now is we're well out of the cold winter months, and like I said, now we're trying to find that sweet spot before it gets too warm. And so May, I mean, we love this time of year. We do a ton of installs. Any annuals you want are now available.
Yep.
All your spring and summer annuals are out. So it's an exciting time. It's a fun time. There's tons of stuff available. So it's something we look forward to each year, and we're rolling right along. Yeah. We're just trying to get it in the ground before that summer heat.
Vinca everywhere.
Yeah.
It's that time. All right. Today we're going to be talking about debunking gardening myths. So I'm sure you've all seen them on TikTok and Instagram. Oh, do this and your plants will grow. There's some old ones out there that have been around a long time. So we don't really 100% know what Alex is going to ask us, but we'll take each one and we'll see if we can debunk them and figure it out.
Give it a try.
I think you guys will have a pretty good time with these. These are pretty good. All right. To start off with, we got a classic. Can coffee grounds, bananas, and or eggshells be used as a substitute for nutrients?
Yeah, so this is probably the most common one. I've seen people now blending them up and like soaking them in water and all of these different things. This will probably go hand in hand with almost everything that we'll say today, which is home remedies are never going to be as good as a true, plant food or solution for your lawn, garden, insects, disease issues. But certainly there are things that are in those components. So like I believe eggshells is calcium. Bananas is potassium, coffee grounds, I think, is acidity and different types of things. So I think they're all, good sources, but they're never going to be stronger than what you'll get, even in an organic formulation, a plant food that's a well-balanced diet rather than a specific nutrient. Sometimes we're going after specific nutrients, but most of the time we're saying, hey, you need a well-balanced plant food for your plants. I don't know what your thought is on that.
Yeah, I mean, I think for us, like I said, a lot of times what we'll do is we'll create space. I always encourage people to create like a small compost pile.
For sure.
If you have a compost pile, it gives you, a place to get rid of some of those things that will break down organically. And then also just having I'll do it whenever I'm doing a project or something. I'm generating soil. I want to have a place to kind of put soil and put it and mix it in with some compost. But I mean, I think it's a good thing to compost. But no, I mean, like you said, the reason that these things, the ones we recommend, the ones we use, and they're, whether it's the organic or the non-organic, they're going to be the best thing. And we're trying to create what's going to be the best environment for that plant.
Yeah.
So I would always defer to that. And I'm not going to, I'm sure there will be people who swear by it and it has worked well for them. And if you like it and you enjoy it, go for it. It's not detrimental to the plant. No. It's not going to harm the plant. So if you enjoy doing it, I'd say go for it. I would recommend just using it as a composter and composting that stuff, but not using it as a replacement for those things that your plants need. I mean, if you have a plant that's, dependent on potassium, calcium, whatever the case, you're going to want to find the right nutrient level for that, and that's going to be a lot easier to obtain using the well plant. I like how you phrase it with a well balanced diet for your plant. And a lot of times you can cover all of those things with one or two supplements that you can find at your local garden center. So again, we have people we meet with all the time who say they've been doing it. It's worked better than anything they've ever done.
Go for it.
If it's working for you, you're not hurting anything, go for it. But if you're really trying, if you have a plant that's dependent on some of those things, I would probably lean more towards some of the formulated ones.
Yeah. Mm-hmm. Look up something for me, Alex.
Sure.
Find out what the coffee grinds do. Do they make the soil more acidic or more alkaline? So while you're looking that up, I'm going to talk about the compost part of it. The composting part, I think, is important. You're going to get, if you put all of this stuff in a compost pile, leaf litter, branches, twigs, all of these different things into a big compost pile, you can put some of your, vegetable leftovers and different things in there. Then you're going to get a really good compost that you can use down the road. in the process of composting, I think this is important for people to understand, because I hear a lot of like leaf litter, like why can't I just use leaves, around, my plants as a mulch? You certainly can. It's what, the forest is, but the decomposition process. So when something decomposes, it uses nitrogen. So you literally are going to be pulling nitrogen away from the plant, which is one of the macronutrients. Yeah. Whenever we talk about fertilizers, plant foods, you got your NPK, nitrogen, phosphorus, potassium. So those are the three big ones. There's tons of micronutrients, trace elements that we'll also get into, but those are your three big ones. And nitrogen is what forces green growth, which typically you're going to want. So if you're pulling nitrogen away from a plant because it has to aid the composting part of it, then it's not going to actually be benefiting the plant. It actually could be harming the plant. So you want to let it decompose, become a compost, and then spread a thin layer around your plants. I think that's great for it. And then it's a little bit more of that well-balanced diet versus, just using potassium. And like I said, sometimes we will go after certain things. Phosphorus is something that produces blooms. So if you're saying, hey, my plant looks great, it looks healthy, it's not blooming, we'll ask you multiple questions to try and get to the bottom of it. But sometimes it might be a lack of phosphorus, and we'll go straight after the phosphorus problem. But you're going to get more phosphorus from an organic or traditional plant food than you ever will from whatever home remedy you might have for it.
And it's the myth is based on it to help acidify the soil.
Yeah,
that's what they're saying for the coffee grounds specifically.
Yeah, so acidifying your soil, typically in our area, you don't want to do that.
No, but you're trying to do the opposite.
Most people in the country do have a more acidic soil. Up north, you get a little bit more of the alkaline types of soils. But acidifiers are really important for blueberries. Blueberries love a low acidity. Hollies, rhododendrons, azaleas. Here's what I'd throw back at that one is I would say, I can tell you how much we can move a point with our soil acidifier. So if you're at a 7 and you need to get to a 5, I can tell you exactly how much to put down. No clue.
How much
coffee grounds you're going to need. So that's kind of like the debunk that I would give is sometimes you're trying to do something specific. We can get you there a lot faster than saying, hey, go test your soil every 2 weeks and let's see when you finally get there. And then we'll solve the myth of how many coffee grounds, applications you have to get to lower your pH to the right level.
Absolutely. Okay, another one. Are ice cubes an effective way to water orchids? I've heard of this one so many times.
Yeah, I mean, and what's funny is I've even seen, and some of the big box stores when I've walked through, they actually have it on the tag. It's called like an ice cube orchid. It's not a bad way to measure out how much you water it.
Right.
But I think the problem is that not all plants like ice cold water.
For sure.
And that's what it is. So, I think, if you can replicate that measuring process and just do it with a little bit warmer water, that would be my recommendation. Again, the thought process behind it between, the amount of water, because you don't want to overwater your orchid, obviously. It does make sense, but I think the problem is ice cubes are ice cold water.
Yeah. I see it at trade shows all the time.
Yeah.
Really?
So I'll go to like a trade show more in my past than I do now, but they bring plants into these trade shows and you see just a bucket of ice poured over the top of like a tree or a shrub. And while short-term effects probably aren't going to be, hugely detrimental, the long-term effects I think are really the problem, which is you're throwing that plant out of kilter. I mean, it's basing its life cycle or its growth pattern off of seasonality. Orchids are tropical plants. They grow in trees in the rainforest. So when does it ever get 32 degrees in the rainforest? So, water as it thaws is going to be pretty cold. And so then you're throwing that plant into an area of like what is going on, what's happening. So certainly people will, typically say orchids will bloom better after a colder period. So there's those things that are true. They know the seasons when we start to warm up, they'll start to bloom a little bit better. You can do that in your home by moving it around into different positions in your house. But getting into that, I always say, especially with houseplants, like don't get into a regiment of watering your plant on a cycle. And this is what would force you even to do that more is let me put, a few ice cubes on my orchid every Monday. And then all of a sudden I'm on a water regiment. It's throwing the plant into a little bit of shock and disarray to say what's happening, what's going on with the seasons. I thought it was summer. I thought it was spring. And now all of a sudden I'm getting this ice cold water on me. So I definitely don't recommend that one.
All right. Now what about this one? Is vinegar an effective weed killer?
I know you get that all the time.
I was going to say, this is probably one of the ones we get the most of. And again, I probably sound like a broken record here. Yes and no. It can be one and the same, right? So if you do, put vinegar on weeds, it will burn the top of the weeds, and your weeds, they will go away. They will burn up, and it'll look like you've killed them. The problem is it does not kill the root system of the weeds. And so same reason we always encourage using the proper herbicide to get rid of weeds as opposed to hand pulling weeds. When you hand pull weeds, a lot of times you break it off at the stem. If you don't get all those roots out, you're going to have the problem coming right back. So, that's why I've always encouraged using an herbicide, because the most important part is actually killing the root system so that you don't have them coming back. So that's what the vinegar doesn't do. Now, if you don't mind applying it a lot, like I said, you can certainly do it, and it will work for the most part. I mean, some things are more stubborn than others, but it is not so it's not. I'm not going to say no, but for effective weed control long term, if you don't want to have to continually do it, I would certainly recommend using something different. So I know there are people who swear by it, and it does work to some extent. It's just for long term control, I wouldn't recommend using vinegar.
Yeah. I mean, there's more and more of them coming out on the market that are, I can't remember the percentage, like 40% or something like that, where it's, a concentrated vinegar, and it's sold as an organic way of getting rid of weeds. And so it works, but Daniel's right. I mean, you're going to spray, it's going to die, it's going to come back, you're going to spray again. And basically what you're doing is trying to prevent it from going through its photosynthesis process. So you're always killing it at a young age. And then the root system tries to regenerate. And then all of a sudden, hopefully down the road, the root system says, I haven't had any food source for a while. So now I'm going to die. So I'm not saying, it could be effective. It's going to be a longer battle. And there are some, like I said, higher grade ones. I don't think we're carrying a whole lot of them right now, so I don't know a lot about it, but I know vinegar was one of the main ingredients in some of the new organic solutions for controlling weeds. And so they're working on it. I think Iron Heda was the other one that was in our organic weed killers. There's organic pre-emergence. So if you're looking for a safe solution, there's lots of them. I mean, I'm sure Daniel's seen these. I think I've sold some for a little while there. Not that I would necessarily recommend it, but the torches, so you can burn the plant. I mean, it's all the same idea. It's what we talk about with, certainly there's some negative connotation to Roundup, but we won't get down that road. But those are designed to go in and kill the root system. And there's a lot of different ones now that have come out that aren't the same as Roundup, use a different active ingredient. But in most Roundups, what people saw was the burning agent. So that's why Roundup's claim to fame was it looks dead within an hour.
Within one day or whatever.
So that was all it was burning the top growth. The downfall of it is did the actual active ingredient that's supposed to kill the root system, did it get down to the root system before the top growth just looked burnt? So there's a lot of different solutions out there. Vinegar certainly could be a good one. So that would be one that I wouldn't completely debunk either.
Right.
Yeah.
All right. Now this is one I have personally never heard of. Does baking soda help control powdery mildew?
I'll let you take this one, Mike.
That is a loaded subject. Powdery mildew is very difficult to control anyways. I certainly like the oils typically the most. So like neem oil is a great safe one. The horticultural oils, the dormant oils, because what oils do is suffocate insects and disease. And so it kind of helps suffocate a fungus that needs to breathe. So that's where I would go typically is I'd recommend what I know is a tried and true. There is a old fashioned bicarbonate that literally will eat powdery mildew. Oh, wow. It's a little bit harder to find these days. And it actually used to have a lot of different applications, but they started taking those off the label, which is why people don't use it as much anymore. And so I'm going to get this wrong probably, but you might want to look it up. But baking soda, one is sodium bicarbonate and the other one's potassium bicarbonate. Don't ask me which one's which, but I believe those are the two. So they're not the same. I'll put it that way.
Right.
Baking soda is not the same as bicarb, which is what people use to actually eat the powdery mildew fungicide. So if you look up what's in baking soda,
it is sodium bicarbonate.
So sodium bicarbonate. So there you go. So the other one is potassium bicarbonate, which is actually going to eat the powdery mildew. The downfall of sodium bicarbonate, right? Did I get that right this time?
Yes, you did.
Is it's not a preventative. It's really more of a curative.
Oh.
So it's, hey, am I planting the plant in the right spot? It seems, am I getting overhead watering from irrigation? Right. There's always an explanation as to why you're getting. Now, it can naturally happen. I'm not saying it can't, but there might be other factors that can come into play here, rather than using this home remedy on getting rid of powdery mildew. I know it's a problem, but I would trust in the oils and some of the other fungicides to treat it than that home remedy.
People really just want to go in their kitchen cabinets and try to figure out something real quick.
That was one I had never actually heard before. But like I said, whenever we do it, we use the oils and stuff when we're battling powdery mildew. So I know that works for sure. I'd never heard of that one. That one was interesting.
Yeah, for sure. Okay, so can native plants, do they not need water? Don't require water?
I know you deal with this all the time.
Yeah, so, it's, in theory, I understand why people would make that assumption. I think native plants, can be defined different ways. If you have something that has truly grown up as a volunteer, it has sprouted and it is truly native to your yard, they are probably not going to require a lot of water. But a lot of times what we're doing is we're planting a native garden. Now, while natives are a lot of time, a lot tougher, they're hardier, they do perform well in this area. That's obviously one of their claims to fame. But everything needs water when it's first getting acclimated. When you're taking something out of a pot, we've talked about this in some of the previous podcasts, you want that to encourage that those roots to get going, to jump out into the soil. They need water to grow. So I would say that is false, but the concept behind it does hold water in the fact that they do not need as much of that. So yes, natives are just in general usually a little bit lower maintenance in the sense of watering and stuff like that, but they are still going to need water to get acclimated, to get established. So we've talked about don't overwater them for sure. You want to try to get them to stretch their roots out and stuff like that. But no, I would say natives are not, if I could find something that you didn't have to water, didn't have to take care of, and it would grow on its own, it'd be a pretty easy thing to do. But I would say not even natives, fit that bill, but they do probably require, I would say, less water, but certainly not no water.
Yeah, I completely agree. I mean, hit the nail on the head. So, certainly natives are great for the your local environment and your community and all of those great things and all the flora and the fauna and all the the different bugs and bees and butterflies. But certainly anything that you're going to plant, you're going to have to water.
Right.
So, not necessarily true, but kind of.
So going back to the household items here on this one, can dish soap help insecticides and pesticides stick better?
Yes. This is one of my favorite hacks. Yeah. This is my favorite little hack, but it's not perfect.
Okay.
Guess what? It's not a one and done type of thing. So you can't use it on everything, but yes. So here's kind of the best way to explain it. There's surfactants. So surfactants help things stick. You're spraying a plant with a liquid-based product, whether it's an insecticide, fungicide, herbicide. What are you trying to do? That liquid is then required to stick to the plant.
Yeah.
So my best example is I'm trying to kill my lawn or I'm trying to kill a portion of an area of my yard and I've got clover really bad. You've picked clover. Everybody's picked, trying to look for a 4-leaf clover. It's a very waxy blade. So you spray it with water, the water beads up, it falls off. So this helps stick it to the leaf of the weed. Plus, some blades of grass are standing straight up. So, you got this verticality and you spray it with water, the water drips down to the bottom. That's not how herbicides work. It literally has to stick to the leaf of the weed or the plant in order to kill it, or in order to kill the insect or treat it with a fungicide. A lot of products have surfactants in them. This is where I start to debunk it a little bit, because you really need to read your label. Because here's the science part of it. There's ionic and non-ionic. Oh, wow. So ionic surfactants would be dish soap, which is a quick, easy fix. What I do is one of my favorite products to use is Killzall. High yield Killzall. It just kills everything that you spray it on. So I use it to kill poison ivy, or if I'm doing a new bed, I'll go out there. So I'll drop 2 or 3 drops of Dawn or any kind of liquid dish soap, not hand soap, but a liquid dish soap. I'll put it in there, and then I'll mix it up. It makes it a little sudsy, but it'll stick a little bit better because I used it. But spreader sticker, so we sell high yield spreader sticker, but there's lots of different surfactants out there in spreader stickers. They're non-ionic. And non-ionic will actually mix with the chemical or the spray that you're using, and therefore make it stick better. It's just going to work better. A great example is, a lot of people deal with nutgrass. Nutgrass is nut sedge, nutgrass. It's a very lime green grass. If you ever mowed your yard and then the next day there's something poking up all over the place, you've got nutgrass. And it's a very hard weed to kill because it's a very waxy leaf.
Yep.
And so trying to get a liquid to stick to it is very difficult, and you have to use a non-ionic with that one. So yes, I love it. I use it. But if I've got spreader sticker, I'm using spreader sticker first.
Gotcha. All right. Last one. This is an interesting one. Can juicy fruits and human hair get rid of moles?
Mike, I'm going to defer to you on this one too. You teach our mole and vole class, so that's one I had never heard of. Yeah. But I'm sure some people swear by it. But I'll let you tell us if that one's going to work or not.
Yeah. So I certainly, whenever I teach the class about moles and voles, and we've already mentioned it in a previous podcast, we're going to do a whole podcast on moles and voles because we know it's a big subject. But trying to kill a mole or a vole is difficult because you just don't know how many you have. They're living under the ground. So yeah, you get one, great. What I have learned about juicy fruit and human hair is that they're probably not going to eat it, especially moles. Moles are meat eaters. They're going to eat insects. Why would they eat juicy fruit? And really, what is juicy fruit going to do, or what is gum going to do? Probably nothing. It's not going to harm it, even if they do eat it, and they probably won't eat it. So, and I don't even understand the human hair one. I think that's more of a deterrent, a repellent.
Sure.
So I've heard of some crazy things out there.
Yeah.
Gassing them. Taking an adapter to the exhaust of your car and attaching it to a hose and putting it down the mole hole.
What?
Just like it'll put them to sleep forever. But the downfall of it is what are you putting into your soil? Like then you're putting all of that exhaust into your soil, so that's not good. So a lot of these home remedies I really don't recommend. If you're trying to have a successful garden, then do the right thing and check with your local garden center and get the right products that are safe. When we talk about this podcast, when we do a mole and vole podcast, the solution that we have come up with is safe for pets, safe for animals. There's no poisons, so it is the best solution. And all of these other things don't sound like great solutions. I mean, what animal might come down and eat the juicy fruit,
exactly.
and then will that kill that other animal that you're not trying to kill? So that's where I tend to always debunk some of these myths because it's that's not what we as horticulturalists know.
And I think that's where I always end up with them too. I mean, we get a lot of different questions and stuff. We meet with people. And I've always said, look, if something's working for you, you don't mind it. I'm not telling you not to do it. A lot of times if it's not harmful to the plant, do it. But what I always come back to is efficiency and putting in your time and your energy. If you're going to take the time to go out there and treat the soil with different things, we appreciate the fact that you realize that these plants need different things. If you're going to go out and take the time to put things in juicy fruit in your mole tunnels, whatever the case may be, if you get the right products, you're going to have the more success. And so what I don't want to do is see people go out, put in the time and energy, put in the effort, and then not have the results that they want, and then get discouraged from gardening for one reason or another. So that's what I've always said is there are things that work. I mean, the Dawn one I've certainly heard before. That's a good one, the dish soap one. But again, spreader sticker, a lot of this stuff is fairly inexpensive. You can keep it around, use it for all different things. It goes a long way. So my biggest thing with them isn't that they necessarily don't work as well. It's just if you are going to put the time and energy in to do it, you want to be successful. You want to be encouraged to continue to do it. And again, I appreciate the fact that the people recognize, hey, these plants need certain nutrients. We need to do it. It is an ongoing process. So if you can set yourself up for success and bear the fruits of your labor when you do it, you're going to be a lot happier to do it.
Yeah. Not your juicy fruits.
Don't want to get people discouraged. Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, I think Daniel hit the nail on the head there. I think that it's a great point. If you're doing something and you believe in it and it's working for you, go for it. Buy it. I mean, and if anything, come and tell us. Like, we'd love to hear those, success stories and what's working for you. Certainly there's a lot of great solutions out there. I think taking all of those first ones, the coffee grounds, the eggshells, the vegetable leftovers, and putting it in a compost pile is a great solution to giving 100%. Something that can make something for all of the plants in your garden. And it's not going to be like this specific type of thing that you're going to do, and I don't know if it's going to do a whole lot. So I think there's some great ideas out there. Everybody's always thinking forward thinking and coming up with these amazing ideas. It's just some of them, like Daniel said, if you're going to put the effort in, let's put it, let's get you something that's going to work.
Yep,
exactly.
Cool.
All right, that's all the myths I have. Do you guys have any that you'd like to share? Or?
No, I just debunk them.
Yeah, I was about to say, I feel like it was all bad news. But no, I think the big thing is hopefully you're enjoying this time of year and get out and use your home remedies combined with some of the other ones and have some success.
Yeah, and let us know. Let us know
Yeah,
what works for you. We'd love to hear your comments. Thank you all for listening to the Bros of Gardening. It's starting to warm up.
Yeah.
Next week, we're talking about watering and irrigation.
It's an important one.
Yeah, that's a big one. And we'll get into the depths of making sure that your plants make it through the summer heat.
Absolutely.
All right. We'll see you next time. Thanks, everybody.